It's an unfortunate reality that the ocean often hides things that simply don't belong there, and some of what's been uncovered is downright disturbing. From eerie discoveries to unsettling reminders of what lies beneath, here are 20 of the creepiest things ever found in the ocean. Number 20. The Great Blue Hole. This spot, or Great Blue Hole, is a place that many people love to go and traverse in Belize because both above and below there are a lot of things to see, which includes a variety of sharks in regards to the non-lethal ones, and the fact that this place is a giant sinkhole that eventually created the spot that you see now. Now, yes indeed, this hole that people swim in and animals live in is actually a sinkhole. It's nature's way of changing things up a little bit. You also can't deny that it does have a visual look to it that makes it something that you would want to try out for yourself, and if you do, just make sure that you know what you're dealing with. The Blue Hole is revered as a dive site, but due to what the water's like and the inhabitants of the hole, it's recommended that you have some serious diving experience before simply jumping in. Now, sadly, there are many people who do dive in without enough experience, and the results are indeed and can be fatal. Furthermore, due to the clarity of the water, which is literally defined as being crystal clear, you would think that you're so close to something but instead be so far away, and that's going to hurt you on the back end of your dive when your air reserves aren't exactly there anymore. Finally, as mentioned before, there are sharks, and while they're not the most mean of the species, they can and will attack you, and that can hurt your air supply and your equipment. Now, I'm not saying that you can't dive there, you just want to be careful if you try. Number 19. Black smokestacks. Smoke is another thing that you wouldn't expect to see underwater. After all, that requires things that aren't underwater 99% of the time. So when you usually see smoke, it's likely just dirt from the ocean floor being pushed by something like the current or even an animal. However, back in 1977, some scientists were researching the Galapagos Islands and wanted to have a look at the temperature anomaly that they had picked up. When they got to where the source was, well, let's just say that they were shocked at what they found. Plumes of black, superheated, and mineral-laden water billowing out of chimneys that projected up from the sea floor to the height of a 10-story building. That means that these black smokestacks were going over 100 feet up from the vents, and that's definitely not something you see every day. While the discovery of the smoke was indeed shocking, the main thing you need to know here is that this was the very first discovery of hydrothermal vents. Yes, indeed. And the reason that these were found at all was because they just so happened to be in a submarine that was about 8,000 feet below sea level. These vents are basically connected to the Earth's core, and as a result, the water that they can shoot out is over 350 degrees Celsius, which, if you don't know, is really super hot, yet it doesn't boil ironically enough. However, you still don't want to touch it regardless. While this was a very major discovery, one can only truly imagine what those scientists were thinking when they saw this vent and the massive black plumes that came from it. It was very much something that no one had seen at that time before. Number 18. Ghost Fleet of Truk Lagoon. One of the things that most people would honestly expect to find in the waters of the world are shipwrecks, but if you think about it, between natural events like storms or giant waves or even the wars that have been fought on the water, boats do tend to sink in the oceans and are found by divers later on. The difference in regards to the Ghost Fleet of Truk Lagoon is that this isn't just one ship. It's a literal fleet of them from a key point in the Second World War. Specifically, you're going to find this ghost fleet near the Caroline Islands in the South Pacific. At one point in time in the Second World War, this was home base for the Japanese main fleet of warships, also known as the Imperial Fleet. So what exactly happened to them? Well, that would be Operation Hailstorm, which many would go on to refer to as the Japanese Pearl Harbor due to the destruction that would be caused to the fleet at the time. Hundreds of Japanese ships still very much line the waters of Truk Lagoon, and while that was a tragedy of the time, it's turned into something both creepy and special now. Creepy because it's still a lot of ships just laying there in the water, but it's special because it's now one of the premier dive sites for wrecks of World War II. In fact, Jacques Cousteau himself went in 1969 to film the Lagoon of Lost Ships and explored the wreck-littered lagoon. Many people still go there even to this day. Number 17. The Lost City of Heraklion. What's more shocking than finding a massive ship underwater? How about finding an entire city? It's true, and in this case, it's a very historical one, as Heraklion was not only an important city to Egypt, it was even called the gateway to the country. It was so important that when it was taken by the oceans, it was then named the Lost Kingdom of Cleopatra. You know, it's important when it's named after one of the most famous leaders. So what exactly did sink an entire city? Well, nature, what else? It's widely believed that a mixture of earthquakes, tidal waves, and floods were what forced the city into the water. So in other words, nature did its worst to the city and eventually the city had to and just sunk. What's more, this was very much a big find when it was rediscovered, and it wasn't until the year 2000 AD when it would be rediscovered 2 kilometers away from Alexandria. Just as shocking and funny, when you think about it, is it was found by accident. Divers had randomly came across a fragment of rock that didn't exactly fit into the surroundings that they were in, and that's when they would go on to find other such fragments, leading to more dives and even more discoveries. As each piece would be found, it painted a more clear picture that they didn't only find a lost piece of stone but an entire lost city. Obviously, after the city was found, a massive search for the city itself through the use of sonar and other technologies commenced. There have been other sites lost at sea over history, but this one is truly special due to its significance to Egypt at the time and proved once more how nature has a way of making things happen. Number 16. Toxic underwater river. Something you might be a little surprised at, though, is that there's a full-on underwater river in the ocean. Many of them, in fact, and ones that have their own currents and everything. However, in the Yucatan Peninsula, you'll find sinkholes like the Cenote Angelita which cause certain underwater rivers to form, one of which is surrounded by gas, hydrogen sulfide to be exact, and if you don't know, if divers down there actually tried to breathe in the water with the gas inside of it, they would die. Equally as ominous and creepy is that this isn't just a thin layer you can actually avoid. It's 10 feet thick, which means that you have to be really careful as you dive through it, as one malfunction could mean your doom. Why nature decided to form such a combination is well beyond me. Now it's time for today's topic. A short clip circulating on Facebook has gone viral, amassing millions of views in just a few days. The video, reportedly filmed by a passenger aboard a commercial flight traveling over the North Atlantic, shows what appears to be a massive whirlpool forming in the middle of the ocean. The footage, taken through the cabin window, captures a perfectly circular depression in the water, spiraling downward as if the sea itself was being swallowed. The sheer scale of the anomaly shocked viewers. The vortex seemed large enough to engulf a ship, stretching hundreds of meters across. According to passengers, the event occurred in August 2025 during a routine flight from Lisbon to New York. The passenger who filmed it described the sight as terrifying, like looking into the mouth of the earth. The flight crew has declined to comment, stating only that the journey continued safely without incident. Oceanographers reviewing the viral footage remain divided. Some suggest it could have been a rare oceanic phenomenon such as a massive downwelling caused by intersecting currents. Others insist the video may be digitally altered, citing the near-perfect shape of the vortex. Whether real or not, the clip has reignited theories about uncharted anomalies in the Atlantic Ocean, echoing the long-standing mysteries of the Bermuda Triangle. Number 15. Turtle graveyard. From something controversial to something rather depressing, I'll now talk about a turtle graveyard. Now, don't make that face at me. I literally just told you that this would be a depressing thing. Back in the early 1980s, the famous ocean explorer Captain Jacques Cousteau and his team would pay a visit to the islands of Sipodon off the coast of Borneo to film a documentary about its crystalline waters. And here's where things take a turn, because as they were exploring the waters, they found themselves inside of a mysterious cave, one that just so happened to have the bones of a whole lot of dead turtles within. Jacques Cousteau was surprised by this and suggested at the time that the reason for the graveyard was that the turtles merely went there to die in peace. Sadly, the truth of the matter was eventually revealed, and it would be a whole lot darker. You see, turtles would enter the cave, but then they would get lost in the maze of tunnels that were within it, and then they couldn't get out, and then they drowned. To further make sense of this, it should be noted that the entrance to the cave actually isn't that deep underwater, so it's something that turtles would spot and naturally be inclined to explore. That is, until they realize all too late that the cave is many hundreds of meters deep, and as a result, they could get lost and die in there. And being that this was a full-on graveyard of bones, many turtles did lose their lives to the cave. Number 14. SS Thistlegorm. Now we'll go back to another sunken ship. In the case of the SS Thistlegorm, this is not so much creepy as it is revered, to the extent that it's not only hailed as a great dive site, but some refer to it as one of the best wreck dives in the entire world. Apparently people rate such things, which is good to know. And if you didn't know, or you simply slept through history in school like I did, this ship is a World War II shipwreck that's located in the north of the Red Sea in the Strait of Gubal. It's a former 128-meter-long British transport ship that was sunk in 1941 after a German air attack, sadly a fate that met many ships in that war, the other major way being sunk by German U-boats. Now, the ship itself would indeed be a great thing to dive in and around due to the history aspect, but what you likely do not realize is what was both on and in that ship when it did go down. I'm talking about 2 locomotives, 2 tanks, army trucks, jeeps, motorbikes, boots, stacks and stacks of rifles, and various spare parts for planes and vehicles. Yes, this thing was absolutely loaded to the gills when it sunk, thus making it a worthy target of the Germans at the time. And now that these things are all strewn across the Red Sea, you can actually go and get an up-close and personal look at them. Apparently, it's so robust in what it has to offer that you'll actually need to take 2 separate dives in order just to see it all. Number 13. Icy Finger of Death. Now, if you go to the coldest places in the world and look under the water, you're going to find a series of ice formations known as ice fingers or brinicles, or as the title of this entry notes, the Icy Finger of Death, which obviously is a whole lot more dramatic. While this may not seem impressive at first glance, they can grow to be well beyond the length of a human, which on average is over 5 feet tall. The formation of these ice fingers are caused by brine, which is more dense than the waters around it. As it moves down into the water, it gets colder and then freezes, becoming a literal ice statue underneath the water, and as they grow and evolve, they resemble fingers. Now, you wouldn't notice this above the ice caps that they're formed from, but they are there and they are interesting, which is why many divers have gone below into the freezing waters in order to capture brinicles growing on camera. It's even been featured in the BBC's Frozen Planet. At first, this may seem like a unique form of ice that is a wonder to behold, but while they aren't sentient, they are alive in their own ways, and that also includes the ability to kill. They won't harm humans per se, but they are able to trap fish with their icy touch and then grow around them, making for a new definition of the phrase, the cold touch of death. All in all, this is proof that sometimes it's scarier under the water than it is to be above it, because even though these things won't kill a human, would you really want to risk it? Number 12. Antikythera mechanism. Now I'll talk about taking a trip back in time to look at a piece of technology that arguably shouldn't have existed when it did. But why is that? Because I'm talking about computers, specifically a device that was dubbed an ancient computer, which might paint different pictures in your head depending on who you are. But in the case of the device known as the Antikythera mechanism, it's something that honestly defies belief, as this ancient computer dates back to the 200 BCE era near Greece, and obviously that was a long time before any true computers were even contemplated. In the year 1900, a shipwreck would be found near the Greek island of Antikythera. In the wreckage, they would discover an old analog computer, which meant that they used the device to determine things that were going to happen in the world without the need for electrical parts or even databases of memory to calculate all the things. Specifically, this type of computer was used to help trace the positions of the stars as well as determine the next solar or lunar eclipse, a very impressive feat and something that those on the water would want in terms of guidance and knowledge. And if you didn't know, the next type of computer like this wasn't created again until the 14th century, which is quite a gap, and thus it's a creepy yet intriguing mystery. How did the Greeks learn not only to make it but to make it so accurate? Nobody really knows, and that's why people keep on studying it. As for where the mechanism is now, you'll find it in the National Archaeological Museum of Athens. Number 11. Sunken City of Cuba. Given the prominence of Cuba, for better and for worse, you might find it odd that this island nation has a sunken city, but yet it does. In the early 2000s, some scuba divers were out doing some studies when their sonar picked up structures about 2,000 feet below sea level that should not have been there. When they went down deeper to look, they would find structures that indeed look like buildings and thus being man-made. But not unlike a certain other monument, many people couldn't actually decide what they were, and when they were created, the depths that they were found in seemed to indicate one thing, but then the history of the world as we knew it indicated another. Eventually, the talk of the city was dubbed to be a kind of hoax, even though it most assuredly was not. It just goes to show you that when you don't get the answers on something, people are going to jump to whatever conclusion they feel like. Number 10. Zemchug Canyon. As you hopefully know by now, the oceans have a wide array of not only life but also structures, especially natural structures that have formed over a great deal of time. This includes canyons, massive fissures within the depths that are much grander than you may expect. Key amongst them being the Zemchug Canyon. It's deeper than the Grand Canyon at 2.6 kilometers deep and is the largest submarine canyon in the entire world based on the drainage area and the volume. Deep, cold, oxygen-rich waters well up from the depths into the canyon, providing sustenance to an enormous array and variety of life forms. So not only is it big and deep, but creatures love to live there, which is not creepy at all. Number 9. The Nautilus Reef. What a man discovered underwater shocked the whole world. When you first hear that name, you might honestly have a very oceanic view of things. After all, Nautilus is the name that's been given to all sorts of ships over the years, and reefs are something that many sea creatures do call home, so all in all it seems like something you would find in the ocean, right? Well, yes and no. The real creepiness factor here is how far video gamers will go to pay tribute to one of their favorite video game characters. The Nautilus Project, more commonly known as the Nautilus Reef, was a League of Legends, one of the most popular video games ever, champion-themed artificial reef which resides at Moreton Bay off the coast of Queensland, Australia. It was a project donated by fans of the OCE region, with the donors' names engraved in a plaque down below the ocean's depths. Yes, for real. League of Legends players actually put money together to have a statue made of the champion known as Nautilus and then put it in the water so that his presence is there. Well, yeah, let's say that his presence is there. It could become an artificial reef for sea creatures. Now, for the record, there are plenty of people who make artificial reefs for fish, but they're a bit more basic than this. It also should be noted that in just over a year, the entire structure was covered in the natural makings of reefs due to the animals living there, and it also included covering up the plaque with all of their names. Plus, do you think that fish even know what League of Legends is? If they do, then we're probably all doomed. Number 8. Yonaguni Monument. To be clear, this isn't a city or a town that was found in the water, but rather a monument in the waters just off of Okinawa, Japan. On its own, it wouldn't really be the most creepy of things. However, when you realize the mystery and controversy that surrounds it, you get an entirely different story. The Yonaguni Monument would be found on accident by a diver in the 1980s, and believe it or not, he was actually trying to research hammerhead sharks, proving that he is very brave. When he came upon this entity, and this is where the controversy comes in, because for decades that would follow, multiple respected people in the scientific community had studied the Yonaguni Monument, and they can't agree on what it is. One side of the argument is that this was a man-made structure, possibly made by ancient civilizations at one point in time before it sank beneath the waves. The other side of the argument, though, is that this was made by nature, which, for the record, is not as odd as it may sound, that over the course of time the waves and waters of the ocean and so on, the monument was formed. No one can really agree on it, and what's more, both sides claim that they have evidence that proves their side of things. It's honestly a little bit creepy to think that something massive is known about, and yet we can't really seem to truly determine what it actually is. So despite it being the find of the century according to some, nobody honestly knows what that find is going to turn out to be. Number 7. Cleopatra's Palace. Cleopatra was one of the most important figures not just in Egyptian history but in the history of the entire world. She's one of the greatest female rulers of all time by a wide margin, and there are many things of hers that have been lost to history, not the least of which was her tomb. But another thing that was originally lost after her passing was Cleopatra's Palace, which was believed to be on the sunken island of Antirodos. French archaeologist Frank Gaudio was the man who led the search for the island and the palace, and by the year 1998, he had discovered it, and within it were many a great artifact that had not been seen for some 2,000 years. As for how the island was sunk, some think that it was a mixture of an earthquake and a tsunami at the same time. Number 6. Underwater train wreck. The phrase train wreck obviously implies something big going wrong in the most spectacular of ways possible. So hearing that there was an underwater train wreck is definitely going to get you to think about what happened. But to be clear, I'm being literal in this sense. It's a literal train wreck that you'll be able to find underwater near New Jersey. The mystery and curiosity of this train wreck is the fact that no one knows how it happened or why the train cars are there at all. To be clear, it isn't a whole train that's underwater, but it's a set of 2 cars that have been underwater for well over 100 years at this point, and nobody knows how they're there. What's more, despite the cars having ID numbers, no one can seem to find where they came from or went until they were eventually found in the water. This is one creepy mystery that might never get solved. Number 5. Sunken City of Baia. Now, if you want another sunken city tale, I have one for you, but this time around I'm going all the way back to the Roman Empire because during that time the city of Baia was around, but it wasn't only a city, it was basically a resort for the elite of the time, and by elite I don't only mean the rich, I mean the corrupt. The amount of hedonism that was said to have come from this place was a whole lot. Eventually, though, people left it behind, and that's when Mother Nature took over, and as the area of the city was in had a lot of volcanic activity, that is indeed what brought the city low, or should I say submerged. Either way, this place of sin is probably in its best place sitting beneath the waves. Number 4. Lit Yam. Now, if you think that places that I've shown you are the oldest to find themselves underwater, you're underestimating Mother Nature quite a bit. For proof of this, you have to look at Lit Yam. This wasn't a city that was sunk, but was actually a village that in and of itself wouldn't be all that impressive, except for the fact that Lit Yam was Neolithic, said to have existed sometime between 6900 and 6300 BC. That obviously makes it much older than many of the other empires that we've already talked about. Furthermore, it's a place where there are many artifacts of that age, and thus makes it a perfect place for archaeological discovery. This includes finding the remains of those that had once lived there via their graveyards, showing the customs of burials even back then. Sites like these are creepy, but they're also a natural part of history and must be studied. Number 3. The giant eyeball. To be clear here, giant is in the context of the fact that it's bigger than a human eyeball, but it's from an animal, so take that into consideration. Regardless, this occurred back in 2012 when this giant eyeball washed up on the beaches of Florida. Naturally, a whole lot of people were weirded out by this because honestly we all would be, Just think about it, it's not the carcass of an animal which happens to wash up on the beaches all the time, it's just an eyeball, one singular eyeball by itself. Word spread quickly, and soon curious locals and stunned tourists gathered around, snapping photos and whispering nervously about what kind of sea monster could have left it behind. Some insisted it belonged to a massive squid, while others swore it had to come from a giant deep-sea shark. A few even joked that it looked like the eye of a real-life sea serpent, the kind whispered about in old sailors' tales. The eye itself was astonishingly large, nearly the size of a softball, its surface a haunting blue that seemed to glisten with an otherworldly sheen. Children stared in awe, while older beachgoers kept their distance, unsettled by the idea that something so huge had been out there in the waters they swam in daily. Scientists were called in, carefully placing the eye on ice to prevent further decay as they prepared to study it. The debate over its origin only intensified online, with theories ranging from ancient sea dragons to government experiments gone wrong. Was Florida's coast hiding something far more mysterious than anyone realized? Was the creature still alive, watching from below the waves, now missing only one of its massive eyes? Was the rest of its body lying deep in the ocean, waiting to be discovered? The mystery of the eye became a sensation, turning the beach into a hotspot for conspiracy theorists, marine biologists, and thrill-seekers alike. To this day, people still bring it up whenever talk of sea monsters arises, proof that even a single eye can be enough to spark global fascination. Was the creature that it was attached to attacked, and this is what was cut out? Or perhaps this is as simple as a fish dying in the water, and then the eye just happened to pop out due to decomposition. Nobody really knows, but what is known is the thing is really super creepy. Number 2. Baltic Sea anomaly. Easily one of the most famous and perhaps infamous of things to ever be found beneath the waves, the Baltic Sea anomaly is a mysterious structure that was found 300 feet below in the Baltic Sea by divers in the year 2011. Yes, the thing has been around for a while quite clearly, yet we've only found it in 2011. If it does look familiar, you're not the only people to say that, as the anomaly looks very much like the Millennium Falcon from Star Wars, even though this was found almost 3 decades after the original movies and the original ship was created. Some divers who explored the site described strange stone-like formations and smooth edges that seemed artificially carved, fueling speculation that this could be evidence of advanced ancient engineering or even alien technology. Others reported unusual sonar readings, with the object casting shadows and shapes that didn't align with natural rock formations. Some claimed their electronic equipment malfunctioned whenever they approached the anomaly, adding to the eerie aura surrounding it. Scientists, on the other hand, argue it could simply be a glacial deposit left behind during the Ice Age, its shape coincidentally resembling a spacecraft. Despite multiple expeditions, definitive answers remain elusive, and the anomaly continues to spark documentaries, debates, and conspiracy theories worldwide. Whether a natural formation or something truly extraordinary, the Baltic Sea anomaly has carved out a place as one of the most talked about modern mysteries of the deep. There are still all sorts of mysteries about what it is, what it isn't, what it's doing there, and there are claims that electronic devices actually shut down around it, further speculating that it could be a true alien craft. What's more, there's no clear clues as to who might have made it, and so the mystery continues on. Number 1. Purple orb. Well, that doesn't sound ominous, does it? Purple orb. This would take place off the coast of California back in 2016, where a group of scientists were in a submarine doing some research, and their lights hit something in a crack in a rock wall. Something appeared to glow when the light shined on it. That thing was a purple orb, and as scientists aboard the craft would note, they had no idea what it was at first, so much so that they literally vacuumed it onto the ship, and it was there that the entity further baffled them by unfolding into 2 parts. The researchers initially speculated it could be a brand new species of nudibranch or mollusk, given its fleshy texture and unusual response to handling. Some even thought it might be a relative of a sea slug, specially adapted for deep-sea survival. Others pointed out that the orb's surface seemed unusually smooth and gelatinous, unlike anything catalogued before. One scientist remarked how the orb seemed to shimmer faintly even outside the water, as though it retained some kind of bioluminescent quality. Marine enthusiasts around the world quickly latched onto the story, sharing images of the orb and fueling theories ranging from alien life to undiscovered deep-sea creatures. Though later analysis suggested it might belong to a group of gastropods, the lack of conclusive evidence has left the purple orb an enduring mystery. Its discovery highlights how even in the age of modern science, the ocean continues to surprise us with strange and unexplained phenomena. For the scientists who brought it aboard, the find was both baffling and exhilarating, a reminder of how much we still don't know about life in the depths. This would lead them to believe it was some kind of unique mollusk, one that literally walks around on one foot. As for why it glowed, that was simply a trick of the light, as they apparently said. That's all for now from the mysteries of the ocean and the incredible things discovered within it. Were you surprised, or maybe even creeped out, by some of these findings? Do you believe there are still more secrets in the depths waiting to shock the world? And what do you think I might have missed on this list? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to check out the other fascinating videos showing on your screen, and I'll see you next time.